Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 263. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. For those of you who are new, my name is Tess Wicks. I'm the founder of Wander Wealthy, host of this show, and financial coach turned business coach for all of you new, aspiring, and seasoned money coaches out there in the world. This is a place where we talk all things building an online coaching business, building a desirable, life-changing, irresistible coaching program, specifically around the topic of money and money mindset, and also how to market and sell that program, and also just get in the right entrepreneurial mindset. How do you show up and how do you do business every day, even when it doesn't always feel fun or even when you don't know if you really can do it? And we talk about all of those topics here. And today I have a fun topic in store for you. I want to break down the 6 easy habits that you can start to take on, or things to keep in mind, things you can work on developing that will allow you to work less and achieve more in your financial coaching business. So many of the individuals that I work with, the coaches that I help build their businesses alongside, and also just people I talk to often ask me, how do you get it all done? And the truth is, a lot of times I don't. And I think I've really just found some things that really work well and help me to spend less time working on my business. And that might sound, for a long time, that used to bother me. For a very long time, I used to associate being busy with being productive, or being busy and being productive within that busyness as being successful. And then I realized that I don't really want to work as much as I, had to in the beginning. And what could I possibly do to change this? How can I be more efficient with my time? And it was something that I had to develop over time. But I also know that there are so many of you out there that might be right now working a full-time job, you're 9 to 5, and then you want to build this money coaching business on the side. Or maybe you're a full-time parent and you want to be able to also build a business to kind of add some income to the family. Or maybe you need to build a business because you need some income, and this is the way you want to go about it. But you're wondering, how do we do it all? How do we make it all happen? And the truth is, I think the first thing, which I'm not going to necessarily mention here, but maybe in a little bit, or in slight ways, I might kind of allude to this, but the first thing is just drop the idea that you need to do it all, because there are a vital few things that you need to do in your business. And then there's a lot of trivial, many things that get distracting and get in the way. And that's something that we really focus inside of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, which is my 12-week intimate one-on-one coaching program where I work one-on-one with my clients who are desiring to build their business either from the ground up, or they're looking to optimize the business that they've already established and really make sure they're doing the right things to get clients in a compelling way and build an amazing coaching program for their clients. But we really focus on separating the vital few from the trivial many. And it's because I spent years building my business where I was trying to do all the things. I spent years kind of getting distracted by all the shiny objects and feeling like I needed to be everywhere and all things to all people. And once I decided to simplify my business, it made my life so much easier. So I know it can be hard when you're first starting out to know what is the most important thing. Where do you need to focus your time? Which is why I think mentorship is so important, because a mentor, especially one who has built the business that you're looking to build, can really help guide you and keep you focused on what is going to work for you and, what things you could drop. But also, there's lots of other information out there that you might be able to glean, especially in this podcast. If you go back some episodes, you might be able to hear what I deem at least important with my clients. But yeah, I do think that mentorship can really help. So for anyone who is interested, this is the last chance to join the Wealthy Coach Blueprint for 2022. And I just invite you to head to wanderwealthy.com/blueprint to fill out the application that is linked on that page, and then we can determine together, how to take that next step forward. If we want to connect on the phone or DM, I am open to whatever line of communication you prefer. But that will allow us to make sure it's a good fit for you, and then we can move forward accordingly. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you don't know which steps are the most important for you to take, and you have a lot of things going on and you're trying to simplify your life and your business and the path, then the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is that answer for you. So head to wanderwealthy.com/blueprint. Again, last chance to join us for 2022. And you'll have to stay tuned to find out what's going to happen for the next round of the blueprint, which won't be till 2023. So now we're going to lead into the 6 easy habits to work less and achieve more. And like I said, being able to actually determine what you need to be doing on a regular basis, what is actually vitally important versus what can you drop, that's a big thing. But when it comes to kind of overall time management and how you can make your time spent doing those things more productive and more efficient, this is what I've learned and what I would suggest. You can start with one of these things at a time and start to build on these habits and implement them in your day-to-day to make yourself like optimally productive. And some of these might feel counterintuitive, and that's a good thing, because so often it's those like counterintuitive things that actually make us get results, and we can't quite understand why that is, but it's like got to be something with the brain, changing things, like flipping it around. And so I always challenge that. I remember this is so similar to when I was in, I think it was elementary school or maybe middle school, and I was in art class and I was trying to draw something and I couldn't quite get it right. And then my art teacher said, why don't you flip the picture that you're trying to copy upside down? Because when you flip the picture upside down, you're no longer trying to replicate whatever you think that thing needs to look like on your paper. Now you're drawing, you also draw it upside down, but now you're really just focusing on the details and trying to really make it look like a replica of what is on the image that you are drawing. So you really change the way, and I think it's something with like you flip into your left brain or something like that, but it seems counterintuitive to get the best kind of replica of something from a drawing perspective. The object that you're drawing, you flip upside down and then you draw it upside down, and it actually is more accurate than if you drew it right side up. How crazy is that? So think about some of these tips in that way. Like they work even if they don't seem the most like realistic option to take. So tip number 1, or habit, easy habit to work into your life, to work less and achieve more. Number 1 is to plan your day the night before. But that's not it, right? But I think so many of us delay, maybe because we're like trying to avoid and we feel overwhelmed, so we don't want to do the planning. If you are one of those people, really try, like as you wrap up your day, or if it's Sunday and you're feeling maybe the Sunday scaries of getting into Monday, I do challenge you to really face the music, so to speak, and sit down and do your best to plan your day the night before. But here's the important tip. When you do that, give yourself less time to work or get the thing done that you need to get done. Less time. Now, again, this is like the counterintuitive thing. You're like, why would I give myself less time? I have so much work to do. I have so much I have to get done. But oftentimes we can only really focus for a set period of time. So if you give yourself too much time, there's something about us that, kicks in and goes, oh, we have all this time, so I'm just going to procrastinate a little bit here or a little bit there. But when you give yourself less time, think about all the people who do procrastinate, but then, they're the same people who are like, I work well under pressure. You put more boundaries around that, and you're just far more likely to actually get the thing done in that time slot because now you've given yourself less time. What's beautiful about this is you typically actually make progress. And I think, instead of giving yourself 3 hours, you give yourself 1.5. Well, now you only have 1.5. So you don't have time to open up, Instagram or whatever other TikTok, social media app that is easy to get lost in. You only have so much time, so you just have to focus. It really helps you hone in on that focus. The other bonus of this is, guess what? Now you have an hour and a half where you can actually assign an hour and a half free to your life. When we give ourselves 3 hours to get something done, it takes us that whole 3 hours because Parkinson's law, which is, a law of the universe, tells us that we will use up all of the resources that are given to us. So if we give ourselves 3 hours, we're going to use up that 3 hours. Now, is it going to be the most productive 3 hours? No, we're going to, get distracted, open up the things. Very rarely do you end if it only takes an hour and a half, you're not going to end an hour and a half early. You take as much time as you need. Maybe you end a half an hour early, but then you only have a half an hour of free time. But instead, if you give yourself less time, then you also trigger this feeling inside of you that's like, hey, and now I have an hour and a half to spend with my family or to spend on this hobby or to go work out or whatever it is else that you also need to get done or want to get done in your day. Or maybe it's just like, I get to go to bed an hour and a half earlier or an hour earlier. Like all of that stuff gets freed up. So plan your day the night before. And this is not just for those who are working full-time on your business. If you have a full-time job and then you have to plan when you're going to work on your business in the morning, maybe around lunch, in the evening, plan your day the night before, but don't try to fill the entire morning, your entire lunch break, and the entire evening with stuff. Figure out what one thing do I need to accomplish, and then find, the 1 to 2 hour time period, and it doesn't have to be consecutive. You can break it up, but find the minimal amount of time where you can really truly full on focus and get that thing done. And if you can also plan out your week that way, but at least day by day will really help. All right, the second easy habit to work less and achieve more is an interesting one. Again, it might seem counterintuitive, but it's to start with the little fires first, which is probably the opposite of what you thought, because there's another thing I'm going to say next that might contradict what I just said. But, there's a lot of little things that you have to do, but they're like the little easy things, and you think, oh, no, I have to do the big hard thing first. But what is really miraculous, I guess, if you just decide okay, I'm going to start with these 3 little fires that they feel really pressing, and if I can just tackle them, I will feel better. And if you can do that, you also help build momentum for yourself. So as long as these little fires don't take up too much time, they have to be tasks that feel pressing and feel important enough, but that aren't going to take you hours, right? You want to spend maybe 15 to 30 minutes on accomplishing these small but seemingly important tasks. So if you don't have 3, that's fine. But if you have 1 to 2 couple small things that just are things you need to get done, and you can get them done quickly, and they also still feel important enough, put those at the top of your day, and start with the little fires first, and put those little fires out. Again, this should only take you no more than 30 minutes, but you can kind of start your day that way, and that helps to build the kind of productivity momentum. So, maybe it's responding to an email, maybe it's calling someone to figure out a bill, maybe it's canceling something, maybe it's sending out a client reminder, maybe it's, what's something else that feels small. Maybe it's just posting your first story of the day on Instagram or whatever. Nothing that's going to take, again, 30 minutes on its own or an hour or more than that, right? We're not building out the entire course the first thing in the morning. It's a little fire that you can put out that helps to build the momentum. This is kind of similar to the snowball debt reduction method, right? Obviously, that takes much longer than just 30 minutes at the beginning of your day, but it's similar when you start with that lowest balance first in the snowball reduction method. And when you do that, the whole point of it, it's not necessarily financially the best use of your money, right? Because there's other debts that could be higher interest, but it helps to build that momentum, and you can just cross that debt off your list, check it off, get it done with, get it out of there. It's less things to focus on, and you feel accomplished, and you're ready to move on to the next thing. So start with the little fires first, which is like easy because usually it's the things that we want to do, but then we're like, no, but I need to write that blog post, or I really need to do this thing. But I'm giving you permission. Don't do all of the little fires. If there's a lot, again, this should take 15 to 30 minutes, no more. You can then move the other little fires to tomorrow and start with those tomorrow. Just prioritize your little fires, kick your days off with them, but keep it short so we can roll into the next thing, which is the third easy habit to work on, which is eating the frog. You may or may not have heard of this, but the idea is that first thing in the day, most people will say, you got to wake up and you got to eat the frog. And I'm saying wake up and put out those little fires and then eat the frog. Okay. So you build that momentum in that first 15 to 30 minutes of putting out those little fires, and then it's time to eat that frog. What is the frog? The frog is the big thing, the thing that you've been resisting, the thing that you feel like is going to take forever, the thing that if you just did it, you'd save yourself so much time thinking about it, right? It's the thing we're pushing off, but it's like, we just need to get started and then we can, build momentum on this thing as well. But we know it's going to take longer than 15 to 30 minute little fire to put out. So like I said, that might be writing the blog post. That might be, getting ready for a client call that requires a lot of preparation. That might be creating your program material. That might be, it could be anything. And it's something it could take an hour and you could get it done in that day, or it could be like a week to a month-long project, but that you can chunk down into smaller segments, but it takes maybe some creative efforts, which are hard to just easily pick up and get done. You really have to get in the zone and get in the mode. But here's the deal. This is why we have to do this, is because if you don't start, you're never going to. It's way too easy to just push something to tomorrow instead of going, okay, I got my little fires put out and now it's time for me to eat the frog. So getting things going, even if you have to close it down an hour later, you're going to be so much further along if you just get started with eating the frog, right? How do you eat a frog? One bite at a time. Actually, it's how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But we're combining two metaphors here. So the third habit is to eat the frog. This is probably the hardest of the easy habits to implement, but I think it can be easier if you can stack it on top of putting out those little fires. So again, 15 to 30 minutes of putting out little fires, and then having a timer that indicates, all right, it's time to move on to that big one that I know I need to get done. And the other thing, I mentioned this already, but we spend so much time thinking about these bigger projects without actually doing anything. And you can also equate this to lots of other things in life. You might have spent so much time, even years, thinking about even starting this business before you actually took the action. And this is normal because, we might not know how to start the business, or we don't know what the first step should be, or we don't know, if we can even do it. But the fact of the matter is you've probably done it by now. If you've started something, and for some of you, I know you might be listening and you're still aspiring and you haven't started, but think about anything that you started. How did you know what to do? How did you get started? Well, you didn't know. You just tried something. You just kind of did it, right? You just looked at what someone else was doing and said, okay, well, I can at least start with that, right? Maybe it's setting up that Instagram account, or setting up the TikTok account, or setting up your LinkedIn profile and just claiming this is who I am. Or maybe it's talking to a group of people and letting them know I'm looking for people to work with on their money, and I'm willing to do it for X amount or for free or whatever that looks like for you. But no one really knows what it looks like to get started, so we just have to start. And the same thing goes when you're starting a big project and you feel a lot of resistance towards it, and you end up thinking about it instead of just doing something. And so often, this is similar to confidence, but also just progress and momentum and inspiration. All of that comes from actually doing. If we wait until we feel confident to do, if we wait until we feel inspired to do, if we wait until we feel momentum to do, we're never going to do, because all of those things require action, require doing in order to start feeling that confidence. So it's like the chicken or the egg, right? The thing that in this case, we don't know if the chicken or the egg came first, but we do know in this scenario that the doing comes before those benefits, those rewards of confidence, momentum, and inspiration. So eat that frog. Number 4, the fourth easy habit is to create in a silo. Okay, so let's say you're eating the frog, you're doing the big thing. When you're doing that, and again, because you're planning your day and you're actually giving yourself less time to get work done, when you're getting work done, you need to do that work in a silo. So take that phone and put it in another room, close out of the tabs, anything that you know is going to distract you, like you know yourself, do what you need to do to get yourself into focus mode. And in some cases, that might even look like turning off your computer and taking out a notebook, right? You have to do what you got to do to get things going. And if you're trying to write something, write an email sequence or a blog post, and you're not getting anywhere because you have distractions left and right, or you know yourself and it's just way too easy to open up a tab and type in your favorite website, then shut it down, open up a notebook, go old school. And I know this sounds like, I'm not trying to sound like your dad. I'm just trying to say, if you know what tools work for you and what tools actually hinder you, work with that. Don't try to change yourself. Don't try to force yourself to write an email campaign in your Gmail inbox when the emails that are popping into that inbox are going to distract you. Instead, work with yourself and what works for you. So whatever that looks like, maybe it's just closing out of the internet and just writing in a Word document, or like I said, getting that notebook and handwriting it and then transcribing it over. It's okay to go old school sometimes if that's going to be best. And I tell this to my money coaching clients even as well. I'm like, if you know that having a pot of savings in the bank account that you look at on a regular basis is going to be too tempting, set up another account. Is it a little bit less, efficient? Does it feel like, okay, now I have to have another login and another password and, it feels a little bit excessive? Sure, but you have to utilize the tools that are going to help you and understand your own personality and how you get in your own way, and then put boundaries in place to protect yourself from that. So the same goes for your attention, right? We need to protect our energy, our time, and our attention, just like we protect our money. And I always tell my clients, my money coaching clients, I say, you need to protect your money just like you protect your time, energy, and attention. And usually, we're good at one of them and not as good at the other. And us money people, we're pretty good at protecting our money, but what about our other things? So use the tools that are going to work for you, even if they seem redundant or just like super archaic. Do it anyway. You don't have to be good with the modern tool. You don't have to be able to use all the modern things if they just don't work. Similarly here, when it's creating in a silo, I also recommend batching. I've talked about batching a lot before, but let's say you need to create a lot of social media posts with written content. I would suggest, doing all the written content in that one time span. And let's say you're closing down your laptop and you're just writing the content out in a notebook. Perfect. One page for each post. Spend the time writing that out. Maybe you need to batch the ideation of these posts first. So first you sit down with your notebook today and you spend the hour eating the frog. And the frog is like, I need to create Instagram posts for the next 2 weeks. Okay, so today we're going to sit down and we're going to ideate what those posts are going to be over the next 2 weeks. How many are they? Okay, how many topics do we need? Okay, any quick ideas that you have, you could also jot that down. And then tomorrow you're going to spend time eating the frog, you're going to spend time actually batching the content, the written content pieces of that. And you're going to get that all jotted down. I know Instagram is kind of moving more towards video. So let's say you're doing this for Reels. Same idea goes. Like, you still have to get the topic ideas down. And then the next day, maybe you batch the video ideas or what music you're going to include, or maybe you batch the actual filming. all of that can be done in batches where you're kind of grouping similar activities together so that you're not doing what we call context switching. And context switching would really be looking like, doing a full single reel in one go. And when you do that, obviously you need to have your phone, you need to have the idea, you need to maybe be on your computer doing some research, whatever that looks like. And you're switching contexts a lot because you're going from maybe pen and paper to computer to phone to looking for music to then filming, and you're doing too many things all in one time period that it actually makes you less efficient and less productive. So batching can make you more efficient and productive. It can allow you to work less and achieve more. And it's just a way of kind of breaking down the process and then batching the similar tasks so that you can be, again, more efficient and productive. Okay, so creating in a silo, remove the distractions, use the tools that'll work for you instead of against you. And then when you're creating in that silo, try to also batch so that you can maintain similar tasks instead of context switching between different types of tasks. All right. The fifth easy habit is another one that you might not think would help you work less and achieve more, but it is so important. And it's kind of a 2-for-1. So apologies if that is confusing, but the habit is to track your time and time your tasks. Okay, so bear with me. Tracking your time, literally, okay, here I go. I'm eating the frog. I'm going to start ideating my content ideas. Now I'm going to go into the app that I like to use. It's just a tab that I always have open on my internet browser. It's called Toggl, Toggl. And you can create different projects and then, create the categories. And then basically right now, my timer is running under my podcast project. And then I add the description that I'm recording the podcast. If I was ideating my content, let's say I was ideating content for the podcast, I'd be coming up with ideas for the podcast. I would have Toggl. It would still be under the podcast category, but I would probably label it notes. But regardless, I'm tracking the time that I'm spending on work and on the various tasks, on the various projects that I'm working on. And here's the deal. I only track my productive time. Like if I am, trying to decompress and do something else and I'm opening up Instagram, I'm not tracking that time. If I'm doing personally shopping or looking up travel or something, I'm not tracking that time. I'm really just tracking the time that I'm spending on client work, that I'm spending on podcast or other content creation, that I'm spending on. Sometimes I track the time that I spend on like administrative kind of, finance, bookkeeping, checking emails. Sometimes I don't because sometimes I feel like that's how I waste my time or how I decompress a little bit is like doing the money stuff instead of the like business stuff because I'm a money nerd too. But I try to only track the actual time where I'm like producing something in my business. So if I spend the whole day working, but then my actual productive time is low, right? My actual tracked time is like 2.5 hours, but I've spent the whole day working. That brings a lot of awareness to me around, okay, I am technically getting things done and it's not really taking that much time, but I'm just creating busyness for myself by becoming distracted in other ways. So I'm achieving the same amount if I only spent 2.5 hours on work. And if I could have freed up the rest of my day, I could be doing all these other things that aren't work related. And like, by the way, if you haven't caught on, I'm a big fan of spending less time working. If you can get the same amount done in 2.5 hours than you can in 8 hours, like do it and then spend the rest of your day in other aspects of your life because work is not the end all be all. It is not everything, right? But, that's big awareness if you realize, okay, I spent the whole day working, in my office. I was sitting at my computer and yet I only got 2.5 hours of like actual productive work time done. what happened to all the others? This is very similar to like tracking your spending, or at least looking at how much did I make this year? Or if you do this with your clients, obviously, like looking at how much did they make this year and then how much do they actually have to show for that? It's eye-opening. It makes you cringe a little bit at yourself. You get a little pit in your stomach, but then it also brings awareness to the fact that, okay, there's something going on. Like my reality does not match my perception of what my reality should be. So we need to work on this. The other thing, so tracking your time is huge. I know it can feel weird because, at least for me, it felt really weird in the beginning because I come from a consulting background. So we had to track our time in consulting because we would bill the client for our time. And now, with my current business, I'm not necessarily billing my clients for my time. They buy a package and then, I spend time working on each client, but I also spend time for the marketing of my business, and I spend time in the administrative side. And so, I'm not necessarily tracking my time to figure out how much money I'm making or anything like that. It's really just a habit that I've developed, and it's an easy habit that you can develop, but it brings a lot of awareness because then I can look back at different periods or just the day and see like, what did I do today? What did I spend my time on? Because I think we can often forget. The other thing I mentioned though in this habit is also to time your tasks. So oftentimes, tracking your time is one thing, but tracking your time is kind of like budgeting with the Mint app, right? It's retrospective. It's looking back and going, okay, this is what I spent in these categories. But if you overspend, you're not proactively limiting that. It's retroactive. You're looking back and just categorizing and then going, whoops, I overspent, right? So it's tracking your time because we still need that awareness, but then it's also timing your tasks. Timing your tasks is more like setting a budget for your tasks. So this is, this kind of goes hand in hand with planning your day and limiting the amount of time you're actually planning to spend on certain things, as well as, being able to figure out, okay, what am I going to spend my time on? Usually it's like eating the frog, whatever the frog is, that's probably what you're going to spend the most of your time on. And then creating and working on the frog and the silo. So all of these habits are building on top of each other. And now when it comes to actually timing your tasks, you can actually determine like, how long am I going to budget for myself to spend on this? And typically, like if you're realistic about it, you can get the work done. And even if you don't have really the time in your day to, let's say you are doing a month of podcast recording, because that's very relevant for me right now. If you're planning a month's worth of podcast content and then you need to record it and all of that, like that's going to take me on average, I would say 4 to 6 hours. Okay. I'm not spending 4 to 6 hours in one day working on this. I might record one episode a day, or I might batch record all the ideas and then batch record 2 episodes. But like, I'm not going to dedicate an entire day because that's not how I organize. Some people do dedicate their entire day to batch recording episodes a month at a time. But for me, I prefer to kind of batch record episodes 2 weeks at a time and just be 2 weeks ahead. But I will plan all the episodes for the month. So I'll batch the ideation of all the episodes for the month, but then I'll just like batch record 2 episodes at a time so I can be 2 weeks ahead. With that being said, let's say it takes me, I'm just doing the batch recording, and let's say it takes me around 45 minutes each episode, but I only have an hour today to dedicate to it. Well, then I'm probably just going to try to get 1 episode recorded today and then 1 tomorrow during the Eat the Frog time. Okay, that's great to know. What else can I do? What else can I implement? Sometimes I'm usually pretty good. Once I hit record, I can just talk. So I don't need any sort of motivation to record content. But if I'm writing, that's a little bit harder, right? Writing, sometimes you can write for a while and then lose steam, and then you need a reason to continue writing to push through. So let's say I'm writing instead of recording. I'm sorry, I'm switching my task. But what I might do is say, okay, I'm going to spend an hour writing, and I'm going to, in order to help me stay consistent with this, I'm going to implement the Pomodoro Method or the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique is basically just a timer, and you don't even need to use any sort of Pomodoro timer. You can just use your phone timer, but it's working on something for 25 minutes and then taking a 5-minute break just to kind of shake it out, rest your mind, and then maybe go to the bathroom or get a glass of water and then come back to it. And so in this case, if I needed to write for an hour and I was just trying to get myself to make an hour's worth of progress eating that frog, I would say, okay, in order to break it down even further, because an hour can still feel daunting, I just have to commit 2 Pomodoros to writing. And that feels so much more attainable. I can get started, work on it for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break, then get started again for another 25-minute sprint, and then take a 5-minute break. And then guess what? I'm done. I'm done for the day. At least I can pick it up tomorrow. And so if podcast recording was as hard as writing is for me, I might have to do that. Luckily, I don't because, again, you get me talking and I could literally talk for hours, as you all probably know. But that's what can help you not only tracking your time, right? I'm tracking how much time I'm spending podcast recording, but if I have a lot of resistance around this task and I want to limit the amount of time I'm going to spend on this task and just focus, work in the silo to get the task done, then I'm also going to apply some timing of my tasks, saying this is going to take me 2 Pomodoros or 4 Pomodoros today. And that adds that extra jolt of motivation. And it also gives you time to really go into focus mode and then take a break. So it's all good. It all works. And again, some of these you might feel are a little like excessive, I guess. And if that's the case, just use the ideas, the habits that really work for you. Because again, these are all habits that I've developed, but I've developed them because they work for me and I see them being useful. And hopefully some of them will work for you, if not all of them, and you can start to see yourself working less and achieving more too. This leads me to the 6th easy habit to develop, to work on, so you can work less and achieve more. And it's more of a reminder, but it is a skill too. And that is, again, this is a little bit of a 2-for-1. I don't know. It's more of just like words I live by, which is done is better than perfect, but also being done with work is better than not being done at all. Okay, here's what I mean. A lot of my clients, including myself, we're perfectionists and we'll procrastinate because we want the thing to be perfect. And we feel like, well, maybe I don't know enough, or maybe I'm not ready, or maybe I'm not talented enough to get started on it yet. And we kind of overthink and overanalyze and overwork a project and never decide that it's going to be done. And what that does is it delays us and delays us and delays us. And then, either we lose steam and we give up, or we finally launch, but we're burnt out, or it's just been a long time. And the reality is, something that's done is better than something that's perfect. And this is what we really focus on inside of the blueprint, especially for my clients who are newly launching a program, is really focusing on the minimum viable program that's going to get your clients results and that they'll be happy to pay for. But it doesn't have to be the, program that's 5 years old that you're seeing someone else sell that is perfect and, the most well-branded and all of that, because you're at the beginning. And really what you need to focus on is just delivering, getting the thing out there so that you can work on making it better, right? Because something doesn't actually become perfect until you actually get feedback and you get experience and you see what works and what doesn't, and then you can work on making it better. But so often we think, oh, no, I could never put something out there that's not perfect yet. And we really need to work on, doing the opposite of that. Done is better than perfect. Okay, so that's the first part of it. And that's easier said than done, but if you can just work on deciding this is a stopping point and how it is good enough, that can really help you. And you can start with really small things. Maybe, it's not your program that people are paying you for, but maybe it's a post that you're making and putting out. Or maybe it's, a podcast episode or whatever it is that you have the tendency to overwork it, overthink it, over-perfectionize it, and you're going to challenge yourself to just be done and put it out there and decide it's good enough as it is. And then we can improve it later on. Now, along that same line is that also being done is better than, just never being done with work. So done is better than perfect with the task, but if you're spending still a lot of time just getting the task done, getting the project done, getting the thing ready to ship, you're also allowed to just decide, okay, work is over for today. And I think so many of us, we're excited, we're passionate about our business and our job and what we're delivering, that it can be hard to shut off, but it is extremely important to also not burn yourself out in the way where you end up spending, very, very late nights just trying to get something done. Oftentimes, if you can shut down and, you time your tasks, right? You spend that hour on the thing and then you say, all right, we reached a good stopping point. I'm going to be done today so that I can pick it up where I left off tomorrow. And this is something that's really hard, especially when you're working on a project or a deliverable that does really require 3 hours of work and you only have an hour. I used to be of the mindset of, if I don't have the 3 hours, then I'm not even going to start. But what we don't realize is that gives you a reason to delay whenever you don't have that huge block of time. Instead, what would be so much better for all of us is if we could even just start and get somewhere in that hour so that we have somewhere to start from tomorrow in tomorrow's hour. So yes, done is better than perfect, but also being done with work and wrapping up and then restarting tomorrow is so much better than either deciding, nope, there's not enough time, so I'm just never going to start all this week until the weekend comes, or deciding to stay up all night and hammer through it unless you absolutely have to. So this is where timing your tasks can really come into handy. This is also where that first easy habit of planning your night the night before and giving yourself less time can come into handy, because even though it sounds counterintuitive, these things work. Just like drawing that replica of that image that you see upside down, because it changes things in your brain and makes you stop trying to draw what you think it needs to look like. You're just doing it. You're just making the most of the time that you have, fully focusing and actually achieving way more in less time. So that is it. Those are the 6 easy habits, some of them easier than others, but definitely something that you can take and start to build on, because these are things that you can actually actively, physically implement in your day-to-day. So re-listen to this if you need to, take good notes and decide, where am I going to start and how can I just make my day more efficient? And it doesn't always have to be the overly sexy, productive, busy, all of that. Just being optimal with the time that you have so that you can see that building this business is reasonable and is sustainable for you, even if you have this crazy schedule that just keeps you, at work or busy all the time. So we can make this work in just a couple of hours a day. And I wanted to share with you the best tips on how, or habits, I guess, you can implement so that you can achieve that. If you have any questions for me, I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget, this is the last chance to enroll in the Wealthy Coach Blueprint for one-on-one coaching with me in 2022. Head to wanderwealthy.com/blueprint. You can also reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is @Tess_Wicks. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And until next time, I hope you wander wealthy.